Elara Quinn had spent most of her life believing that kindness could soften even the hardest hearts. Every dawn found her arranging bouquets in a modest flower shop, weaving colors together while dreaming of opening a studio that carried her own name. The flowers listened more patiently than her relatives ever did, and she often found herself smiling at roses because they never mocked her worn clothes or empty wallet. That evening, after relentless persuasion from her cousin Vivian Holt, Elara reluctantly agreed to attend a blind date at one of the city's most luxurious restaurants. Vivian insisted it was her chance to escape poverty, though the gleam in her eyes suggested entertainment rather than concern. Elara ignored the unease in her chest and borrowed a simple navy dress, determined to keep an open mind. A violent thunderstorm transformed the streets into rivers. Guests rushed through the entrance, umbrellas collided, and the restaurant staff struggled to keep reservations in order. A hurried hostess glanced at Elara's name, then directed her toward a private table near the window. Already seated was a tall man in a charcoal suit whose cold expression discouraged conversation. His sharp features remained unreadable as he looked up from a business report. "You must be late," he said without standing. Elara frowned. "I'm sorry. I think you've mistaken me for someone else." "So have you." Silence settled between them before both reached for the reservation card lying on the table. It bore only a surname blurred by spilled coffee. Realization struck simultaneously. "This isn't my table," Elara admitted. "Nor mine, apparently." For the first time, the man's stern face relaxed into the faintest smile. It was brief, but genuine enough to surprise even him. "I'm Kalen Ashford." Elara Quinn. Before either could leave, Vivian appeared with several elegantly dressed friends. She stopped dramatically beside the table, pretending to gasp. "Oh, Elara. I didn't know you were brave enough to wander into the VIP section." Her companions burst into laughter. One woman whispered loudly, "Maybe she's looking for leftovers." Vivian stepped closer and examined Elara's inexpensive dress with exaggerated pity. "I told you to wear something respectable. Now you've embarrassed yourself in front of everyone." Conversations throughout the dining room slowed as curious eyes turned toward them. Elara lowered her gaze, wishing only to disappear. Instead, Kalen calmly rose from his chair. His towering presence silenced the room before he spoke. "She's with me." The simple sentence carried quiet authority. Every laugh vanished. Vivian's confident smile cracked. "You know her." "I do now," Kalen replied evenly. "And unless you intend to apologize, I suggest you leave." No one challenged him. Even those who had been laughing moments earlier looked away in embarrassment. Vivian clenched her jaw before storming out with her friends. Elara released a shaky breath. "You didn't have to do that. I dislike people who mistake cruelty for confidence." She offered a grateful smile before insisting on leaving. Their meeting had been nothing more than an accident, and she refused to complicate his evening further. Outside, the rain had become relentless. When Elara finally reached the small house where she lived with her aunt, another humiliation awaited her. Her suitcase sat on the front steps, soaked through. The front door opened only long enough for her aunt to throw another bag onto the porch. "You refuse to hand over your savings," her aunt snapped. "Find somewhere else to live." The door slammed. With nowhere to go, Elara carried her drenched belongings to a nearby bus shelter, wrapping her arms around herself against the cold. Minutes later, a sleek black sedan slowed beside the curb. The rear window lowered. Kalen met her stunned eyes across the rain, his expression harder than before. Without a word, he stepped out, draped his expensive coat over her trembling shoulders, and quietly said, "You're coming with me." Elara hesitated, unaware that this unexpected decision would alter both of their lives forever. The ride through the rain passed in silence. Elara sat stiffly in the back seat, clutching the coat around her shoulders while watching blurred city lights race across the window. She had met countless people who offered sympathy with hidden expectations, so she struggled to understand why a stranger would help her without asking for anything in return. Kalen seemed equally reserved. He simply instructed his driver to stop at a quiet boutique hotel instead of his own residence. "You'll stay here tonight," he said as they entered the lobby. "I can't afford this." You don't have to. She hesitated. Why are you helping me? His gaze lingered on her for a moment. Because someone should. Those words settled in her heart more deeply than he realized. The following morning, Ilara insisted on returning his coat personally. She expected to find an ordinary businessman, but the receptionist at the towering Ashford Global headquarters nearly dropped her phone when she mentioned his name. Mr. Ashford is expecting the board of directors, the woman whispered. How do you know him? Before Ilara could answer, the private elevator opened. Kalen stepped out, dressed in an immaculate black suit, surrounded by executives who immediately fell silent when he walked toward her. You came. I wanted to return your coat. You could have kept it. It wasn't mine. A faint smile crossed his face again. Neither was the trouble you endured yesterday. He invited her upstairs for coffee, ignoring the astonished stares of his executives. Inside his office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Despite the breathtaking view, the room felt lonely, with little more than books, documents, and a single family photograph. You work too much, Ilara remarked without thinking. It's efficient. It's also exhausting. No one had ever dared speak to him so honestly. Before he could respond, an elderly man entered with the aid of a carved wooden cane. His eyes sparkled with warmth that contrasted sharply with Kalen's calm demeanor. So this is the young lady, he said cheerfully. Kalen sighed. Grandfather. The older man ignored him and greeted Ilara with surprising affection. I'm Rowan Ashford. Thank you for making my impossible grandson smile. Ilara laughed softly, while Kalen looked thoroughly embarrassed. During lunch, Rowan asked about her life. She answered honestly, admitting she had lost her home but hoped to rebuild her flower business. She never exaggerated her hardships or sought pity. After she left, Rowan's smile faded. You've searched for someone genuine for years, he told Kalen. Don't let pride make another decision for you. Kalen remained silent. That evening, doctors arrived at the Ashford estate. From the hallway, Kalen overheard the specialist speaking quietly. There isn't much time left. The words struck harder than any business loss. Rowan later called his grandson into the library. My greatest regret, the old man admitted, is that I may never see you build a family. Wealth means nothing if you come home to an empty house. Kalen stared into the fireplace. I don't marry for appearances. I'm not asking for appearances, Rowan replied gently. I'm asking you not to spend your life alone. Hours later, Kalen found himself standing outside the small flower shop where Ilara worked. Through the glass, he watched her patiently teach a young delivery boy how to wrap a bouquet after the child accidentally ruined several expensive arrangements. Instead of scolding him, she knelt beside him. Mistakes can grow into beautiful things, she said. Flowers bloom after storms, remember? The boy smiled through tears. Kalen understood then that her kindness wasn't reserved for dramatic moments. It was simply who she was. The next morning, Ilara was arranging fresh lilies when a sleek black car stopped outside the shop. Kalen entered carrying a neatly prepared folder. His expression remained calm, but his voice held unusual certainty. I have a proposal. She blinked in confusion. It isn't about business. He placed the folder on the counter. I want you to marry me. Before Ilara could utter a single word, the shop bell rang, and someone stepped inside, freezing both of them where they stood. The man standing in the doorway wore an expensive tailored coat and a polished smile that failed to reach his eyes. Ilara, he said warmly, it's been too long. She stared in disbelief. Damien. Kalen's expression sharpened as he studied the newcomer. Damien Cross extended a hand toward him. You must be the famous Kalen Ashford. I didn't expect to find my old friend with the city's most powerful CEO. Ilara quickly interrupted. We aren't. My fiancé, Kalen finished calmly. Both Ilara and Damien froze. Damien laughed awkwardly, masking the irritation flashing across his face. What a coincidence. I was actually the man she was supposed to meet at that blind date. Kalen's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. So you never arrived. Business emergency, Damien replied smoothly. These things happen. After he left, silence settled over the flower shop. Ilara turned toward Kalen. Why did you say I was your fiancé? Because he lied. She blinked. He wasn't surprised to see another man proposing to you. He was surprised to see me. His observation unsettled her because it sounded true. Kalen pushed the folder toward her once more. My proposal is genuine. He explained everything without embellishment. His grandfather's failing health had awakened a promise he could no longer ignore. Rowan wished to see him married while he was still alive, and Kalen refused to deceive him with a staged performance. I need someone I can trust, he said quietly. I barely know you. I know enough. She looked down at the contract. 1 year. Separate finances. Complete freedom after the agreement ended. She remained silent until one clause caught her attention. Instead of asking for wealth, jewelry, or luxury, she closed the folder. I have one condition. Kalen raised an eyebrow. The delivery boy who works here is named Milo. His younger sister needs heart surgery. If we're making a deal, help them. Kalen looked genuinely surprised. You'd use your only request on strangers? They're not strangers to me. He nodded once. Done. For the first time, Ilara realized he had agreed without negotiating. A week later, they married quietly in the presence of Rowan and 2 legal witnesses. No reporters. No extravagant ceremony. Only simple vows and a bouquet Ilara arranged herself. Rowan's eyes glistened with happiness as he embraced them both. I've waited years to see this day. News of the marriage spread anyway. Within hours, financial channels, entertainment programs, and social media exploded with speculation. Unknown florist traps billionaire. Secret marriage shocks Ashford Empire. Every headline portrayed Ilara as an opportunist. The hostility intensified when she visited Ashford Global for the first time as Kalen's wife. Employees stopped talking when she entered. Someone deliberately spilled coffee across the floral display she had created for the executive lobby. Another whispered loudly, "She belongs in a flower market, not a boardroom." Ilara quietly cleaned the mess herself. She refused to answer their insults. High above the lobby, Kalen watched everything through the building's security monitors. His face remained expressionless. The following morning, every employee involved received termination letters before arriving at work. No warning. No second chances. At the emergency executive meeting, Kalen stood before the silent room. I don't tolerate dishonesty. His gaze swept across every face. And I tolerate cruelty even less. No one dared argue. That evening, Ilara discovered the dismissals and hurried into his office. You fired them because of me. I fired them because they violated the standards of this company. They have families. So did the people they tried to humiliate. She looked at him carefully. Behind his cold composure was someone who fought battles quietly, never asking for recognition. Days turned into weeks. Each evening she noticed his office lights burning long after midnight. Without telling him, she began leaving homemade soup and fresh sandwiches outside his door before going home. She never knocked. She simply left them there. One rainy night, as she turned to leave, the office door opened. Kalen stood holding the empty bowl. It was better than the chef's, he admitted. She smiled. That's the nicest compliment you've ever given me. For the first time since their marriage, they laughed together. Neither of them noticed a camera lens across the street capturing the intimate moment, or the shadowed figure watching them with growing resentment. The photographs spread across social media before sunrise. Every image captured Kalen holding Ilara's empty soup bowl while looking at her with an expression no one had ever seen on the famously distant CEO. Headlines immediately twisted the moment into scandal, claiming she had manipulated him from the very beginning. Vivian wasted no time adding fuel to the rumors. She appeared on a popular television program, pretending to wipe away tears. I warned my cousin not to chase wealthy men, she declared dramatically. Our family tried to stop her. Within hours, strangers filled the internet with cruel comments, and reporters crowded outside Ashford Global. Ilara quietly accepted every accusation without defending herself. "I won't drag your company into this," she told Kalen. He looked at her steadily. "My company isn't being attacked." She frowned. "My wife is." For the first time, he referred to her that way without hesitation. Later that afternoon, Rowan collapsed while walking through the Ashford estate gardens. Doctors managed to stabilize him, but they ordered complete rest. Before leaving the hospital, Rowan reached for Ilara's hand. "You've brought laughter back into my grandson's life," he whispered weakly. "Don't let anyone steal that from either of you." His words lingered in her heart. Determined to distract Rowan during his recovery, Ilara organized a charity flower exhibition to raise money for children requiring medical treatment, including Milo's little sister. Volunteers, local artists, and dozens of businesses eagerly joined the event. The exhibition opened to overwhelming support. Families wandered among colorful floral displays while musicians performed beneath strings of lanterns. For the first time in weeks, Ilara smiled freely. Then everything changed. The lights suddenly failed. Panic spread through the crowd. Before security restored power, Ilara had disappeared. A single white lily lay on the ground where she had been standing. Kalen arrived moments later after finishing an emergency meeting. The abandoned flower basket and frightened witnesses told him enough. His expression became frighteningly calm. "Seal every exit," he ordered his security chief. "Review every camera within a 10-mile radius." Less than 20 minutes later, investigators discovered that one delivery van had left the venue without inspection. The registration belonged to a shell company connected to Damien Cross. Inside an abandoned warehouse on the city's industrial outskirts, Ilara sat with her hands bound but refused to lower her head. Damien paced before her. "You should have chosen me," he sneered. "Now everyone believes you're a gold digger anyway." "I never chose you." His smile vanished. Before he could answer, another voice echoed through the warehouse. "She chose correctly." The massive entrance doors burst open. Kalen stepped inside alone. Behind him, dozens of security vehicles surrounded the building, their headlights piercing the darkness. Damien laughed nervously. "You came without the police? I came without patience." The room fell silent. Damien grabbed Ilara and shoved her toward the center of the warehouse, using her as a shield while backing away. "If anyone moves." His threat ended abruptly. Ilara deliberately stomped on Damien's foot with all her strength. He instinctively loosened his grip. Kalen crossed the distance in seconds. He pulled her behind him just as Damien swung a metal pipe. The blow struck Kalen across his shoulder instead. Ignoring the pain, Kalen disarmed him with a powerful shove, sending the weapon skidding across the concrete floor. Security officers rushed inside and restrained Damien before he could escape. As paramedics treated Kalen's injured shoulder, Ilara struggled to hold back tears. "You got hurt because of me." He gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. "No." His voice remained calm despite the pain. "I got hurt protecting the person I love." Ilara stared at him, forgetting the chaos surrounding them. Before she could respond, one of the investigators hurried toward Kalen carrying a sealed envelope recovered from Damien's office. "Sir," he said, "you need to see this immediately." Kalen opened it, and the color slowly drained from his face as he read the first page. The document revealed a secret from 15 years earlier, one that would change everything they believed about the day their paths first crossed.